And welcome back to In the Can and the Sundance Film Festival year 2012. Marshall Lewy is with us. He is the director of California Solo, which, we do these interviews, Marshall, and I always, try to just be the objective guy and ask the questions and let people talk about their films. But I saw this the other night, and it was one of my favorite films in a long, long time.
Thank you.
It was great. Robert Carlyle stars in it, ex-rocker who is coming to grips with his past and a very demonized present at the same time. Tell us about the story a little bit and what interested you in the story and why you wrote the screenplay as well.
Sure. Well, as you said, it's about a Robert Carlyle gets a DUI at the beginning of the film, and this sets off a chain of events that leads him to face removal from the country, even though he has a green card, and as a result face some things he's been hiding out from for a very long time. He's sort of settled into this very comfortably numb existence, living in a farm outside of Los Angeles, never having to run into anybody who knows, he has this rocker past.
Right, yeah, and a very tragic past, actually. The band has a history all of its own.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a fictional band, but it's sort of like UK, Nirvana for the UK, that never quite made it as big in the US. So the US is a perfect place for him to just be where he can't be found.
And
of course, the events of the film make it so that he has to break out of that shell a little bit.
And it would have been so easy because the cliche would have been this disgruntled, bitter man who didn't make it, and now he's hiding out and he's ticked off at the world. He's actually pretty settled into his life as an organic farmer.
Yeah,
and he's actually somewhat, he's happy. He does a podcast, which is brilliant. He talks about the famous deaths of old rock stars in his podcast. But he seems like genuinely, he's okay.
Yeah,
he's all right. He probably drinks too much and probably stays in his house a little bit too much, but he's definitely hiding for something. But it's not that cliche, I'm mad and bitter at the world, so I'm going to do something about it.
No, yeah, it was an interesting thing to try to convey that at the beginning of the film, he doesn't hate his life, he doesn't love his life, he's comfortably numb. You know? We could not license this.
I was going to say that would have cost you way too much.
But also, with the podcasts of the dead musicians, it's awfully hard to find music you can afford to at a budget for dead musicians that everybody has heard of, which is also difficult.
And even some of those scenes where he's doing his podcast, it's genuine stuff. And of course Robert comes from that Train Spotting, Full Monty era, and he actually knows a lot of the acts that played late 80s, early 90s. You had a story about a bracelet that he wore during the film.
Yeah, he knows all those guys, and I did write the part for him, but one thing I didn't know when I wrote the part for him, I knew he was in that scene, but he really knows these guys well. He was in, you can actually find on YouTube, he was in an Oasis video. He's really good buddies with the Gallagher brothers, Massive Attack. A lot of these guys, Stone Roses, Ian Brown.
Paul Weller, though, wasn't it?
And Paul Weller, who is mentioned in the film.
From the Jam.
From the guy from the Jam. He's known as the Mod Father. And when Carlyle wears a bracelet that was given to him by Paul Weller in the film, and he wears these sort of, kind of dated button-down shirts. They buttons to the top collar in the movie. One's paisley, one is this really awful checker print.
Yeah.
And those were all stuff he pulled from his closet that he used to wear back in the day. And it was his idea that his character would still wear those clothes. He still sort of hangs on to his heyday in that way, even though he's hiding out from it, in other ways.
Yeah, and I know that you mentioned in the Q&A the other night at the premiere that one of the things that brought Robert onto the project was the fact that he asked you if you were rehearsed, and you said no, and he said good, I'll do it. How much of the script, like in the podcast scene, for example, which were so fluid and very off the top of his head, how much of that was scripted? How much of that was just Robert being Robert?
The podcasts were all as written, and he really treated those as monologues. And he did not change a word to those. And we actually did that on the very last day of filming. And so he, I think, had really embodied the character. And then there was this side, because they are sort of isolated in the film. It's almost like a moment you get to peek inside his mind a little bit.
Right.
And I think he was so comfortable with the character by day 21 of the shoot that he had a blast doing them, and they just came out really, really smoothly. The improv, we did do some improv, and it was a lot of it was between him and Bo, who's sort of the love interest in the film, played by Alexia Rasmussen, and they just had a great rapport, and they did a lot of going off the script, and he would tell stories that he knew that either he had been through. There's one scene where they're having dinner, and he tells these stories where he India, touring through India and ending up waking up in the desert in the middle of nowhere and things like that. And that was all him.
Yeah, and you're probably wondering, was that really Robert Carlyle in India waking up in the middle of the desert? Because you never know with Robert Carlyle.
It was, I do. He did. And I come downstairs, there's 150 people in my kitchen. I don't know how they got there,
It's almost like a Simpsons moment there. Well, I know that we have a clip from California Solo. Let's take a look at it, and we'll talk about it after this. It's California Solo. And yeah, I mean, that's a very vulnerable scene for him there, too, because without it being spoken, you sense that he hasn't picked up a guitar. I mean, they're sitting out in his place, but they're collecting dust, and you have a great story about one of them, one of those Les Paul guitars that he has to do something with. But very vulnerable stuff there. And I want to talk a little bit about kind of the social issues that revolve around this, too, because here's a Scotsman who has been in California, what, 12, 15 years?
Yeah.
Is it right around there? Basically to hide from a past that we don't know much about. He faces deportation because of the DUI and something that happened in the past. So there's some great scenes there. But what got you so educated, I guess? Because I mean, there's some scenes with some lawyers and some very, kind of in-depth, this is what's going to happen, this is what you did, these are the steps you have to take. There's obviously some research you had to do there.
Yeah, well the film really came from two places. Part of it was I wrote the part for Carlyle and the music side of it. And then the other side of it was that I didn't know that if someone had a green card and was a permanent legal resident, someone who lived here for 15 years, had a family.
Neither did Lachlan in the movie.
In the past, and neither did Lachlan.
Yeah.
And few people, since they've seen the film, have come up to me and said, I did not know that. I'm going to drive much more carefully. I have a green card. I always thought I was as good as being a citizen, which is what Robert Carlyle's character thinks. So I went and I spoke to an immigration lawyer who I've known for a long time, who does a lot of public interest work, and he walked me through what happens, when something like this occurs. And a lot of the immigration laws, as people may know, have been tightened since September 11th, and it's still very confusing. It can be very confusing. It can be very arbitrary. It can be very scary. And you have stories about grandfathers who are separated from their children
after decades,
after being here for 20, 30 years.
Establishing families here, their kids have been to school, have jobs, are American citizens, and yet they could go at any time.
Exactly, and part of it is that things that may have happened prior to 9/11, there was actually a law that was passed retroactively. This is not in the film, but was passed retroactively. So offenses that happened prior to September 11th, 2001 would apply. So you could have had something like a DUI or a drug charge in 1993, and then all of a sudden it is on the books and it's in the computer, and then they're coming, ICE, the Immigration Customs Enforcement, is coming and pulling you out of your house or meeting you at work. Yeah. And we take a little bit of a lighter approach in the film. There are more tragic stories to tell, I think.
Sure.
But it is kind of a different face to have this. There's one line in the film where his boss says, he works on a farm, he says, I have all these Mexicans working on my farm, and it's the Scottish guy that gets into trouble with immigration.
Yeah, right.
And, that was one of, I sort of knew that would be have an irony to it. And
well,
that was part of the idea.
And it was very ironic, especially, I mean, the cliche and the stigma attached to Southern California farms.
Right.
You know what I mean? Where, anybody who understands that environment understands the humorous irony.
Right.
And the fact that it's a Scotsman who's in trouble.
And right. And, I mean, we did do a lot of research. I went out to a lot of farms out north of Santa Barbara and up near where the characters lives in Antelope Valley. And it's, they do practice usually good practices, but the way they swing it is you hire workers from a firm who vouches for the fact that they all are legal, and then you can just have plausible deniability if anything happens.
Yeah.
But they do, at least the farms that we went to, they do pay proper wages and treat their workers really well. It was really interesting. I learned a lot about farm life as well.
Yeah, well, the film has a very, we were talked about this before, a very song-like quality about it. It's beautifully set, well told, well done. And the film, of course, California Solo, there is still time here at Sundance to check it out, but I'm pretty sure that people will have a chance to see it after the festival as well. Marshall Lewy, thank you for joining us. We'll be back with more In the Can after this.